Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild... Tired of boring specials about history, science, and technology? Then get on your best headphones, because you might want to lay down for this. A Sovryn Tech special with the world's foremost anarchist technophile, Brian Sovryn. He has a huge, well, you know. And now, here's Brian.
That's right, the Golden Stallion here for you to spread the seed of liberty. And I was spreading that seed in Las Vegas, Nevada. Sin City, though maybe not as sinful as I'd care. But I was there.
Was it sinful enough for you?
It was simple enough for me. And of course, today, thankfully, I'm being joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, who also went with me to Sin City.
Hello.
And yes, it's always great to have you on.
Okay,
and
you went with me to Sin City. I didn't go with you.
That's right. That's right. Let's switch that around. I was riding the coattails of an incredible woman, no doubt about it.
Oh, thank you. You give me so much more credit than that video crew, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that. What a joke. Anyway, really the whole, I guess I'll just come right out and say that. Really, the whole thing was cool. We're talking about Inside Bitcoin Conference 2013 in Las Vegas, Nevada, which we both attended. And as I was just about to say, really, I thought the whole thing was more or less a joke. I want to get out the important caveat that it was absolutely great to meet up with some great friends, to meet some new friends, and to talk with some people in the hallways about some really, really principled things going on. I also want to bring up that there was, not the whole thing, there was at least one thing there that I thought was really, really impressive, as far as stuff that was getting showcased. There's a panel that was really good that we'll talk about, but one panel out of the whole 2-day event. But there was one thing getting showcased there that I thought was absolutely impressive, which was KryptoKit. And that's KryptoKit. You can find that in the Google Chrome store, not the Play Store, but in the Chrome store for Chrome, okay? And this is a polished, beautiful piece of software.
Yeah, what it is an extension for Chrome, and it allows you to have an instant, secure Bitcoin wallet, completely free, of course, and then you can fund it with your own Bitcoins. And it's also an encrypted messaging platform, so you can chat with other people, or not really chat, but message with people, and it's based on PGP encryption.
Right. Yeah, and it works. It's so simple. It works so well. A lot of other features I think that they're planning. I'm actually going to see if I can get the creator or creators of that software onto Sovryn Tech. So a special will be coming up about that.
They made it so fast. It does a lot of the stuff that Dark Wallet was claiming to want to do with their project, and they did it in 4 days or a week or something like that.
Yeah. And as far as to bring it, I admittedly I saw a demo, you did as well, of it within that less than a week time frame that it got made, and then just from that point to now it was 3 weeks, and they just put on all that extra polish and everything, and boy and it showed. The polish showed, but that didn't mean the function was always there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it makes Bitcoin and encrypted messaging easy to use. Yeah,
maybe I'll put a link, a Chrome store link in the show notes, and so people can look for that and find it, because boy, I was nothing less than impressed. So that's
that was one of the highlights of this conference.
Yes. Right. Which, Chrome extensions are serious. It's not it's not this was small in comparison to what things that were supposedly big. No, this was a totally legitimate thing to be putting out there. And I, again, just totally impressed by it. But so now that, the good things for me are out there, how do you feel? Is there anything you want to add as far as the good things about the event?
There were some good things, I suppose. personally, the reason I went to this conference is because I was there with Let's Talk Bitcoin, and that's been a project I've been really enjoying being a part of for the last 7 months or so. And so I was there to generate interviews and content for Let's Talk Bitcoin. I was not speaking at the conference because I actually decided kind of late that I was going to go. So I didn't speak, which I kind of regret, because hearing the rest of the speakers, I really think I would have had something to add that was new and different among that crowd.
Oh, the event could have used you. Now, you spoke, this was set up by Mediabistro, which also had an event in New York recently.
Yeah,
and you did speak at that.
Inside Bitcoins.
Right.
Yeah, so at the New York one, I was a panelist on the Bitcoin and Freedom of Speech panel, which was pretty cool. I thought I enjoyed the way that went.
Sure.
But I mean, I guess I'll just come out and say it and get right into it. This conference, it was in Las Vegas, and it was also the same weekend as this social gambling and gaming summit or something like that. Although I didn't really see the connection between those two events.
No, the social the gambling and social gaming, whatever, was actually, there was like a hallway. There's 2 hallways, and this is all in the MGM Grand, okay? And the conference room, the conference center was like, as far as from the hotel rooms at the MGM Grand, it was like almost a half-hour walk to get there. It's all in the same thing, but it was like a half-hour walk. Anyway.
But what I was going to say, though, was, this conference was put together by Mediabistro. It's not exactly the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute in terms of their principles. They want to make a splash. They want news coverage. And so what they kind of did, from what I could see, is just kind of throw together this hodgepodge of people that are associated with Bitcoin. There really wasn't like a unified message to the conference. There wasn't a theme. There wasn't a specialization. It was just, here's some people who like Bitcoins, and we'll put them all together. And there were a lot of people there who were speakers and panelists who were unfortunately, very unfortunately, completely straying from the roots of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin was intended as, which is a way to free the world.
Sure.
And they were basically spending a lot of time talking about how can we comply with the regulators? How can we appease the U.S. government and try to make nice with them so that they'll allow us to use Bitcoin? And it was just coming from this whole premise of we need to ask permission to use this technology. And that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't meant for anybody to ask permission to use it. It's meant to free the world. And it's not meant to be focused on the U.S. and centric around this group of people who claim to rule over, admittedly one of the most developed nations in the world. But it's not the epicenter of the universe.
Right.
This is a global thing. People around the world are going to use it for all different reasons. Not, frankly, most of them don't involve shopping.
Right.
A lot of it is, preserving your wealth and being able to transact in a way that doesn't require you to bribe corrupt officials, or maybe that's redundant, to bribe officials, or to have to worry about trying to preserve your wealth and your life savings from the government who's stealing it right out of your bank account, like in Cyprus. So I just thought it lacked some of the global perspective, and some of the historical roots of Bitcoin did not come through. And one thing that I realized at this conference, I was thinking about it, and I was talking with Adam and Andreas from Let's Talk Bitcoin, and they said something. Adam said something like, well, you could really deliver a great libertarian Bitcoin speech. And it just hit me at that moment, I used to take it for granted that Bitcoin was a libertarian thing. Bitcoin is about freedom. It's about freeing the world and having a system of transferring value that is just between the people that matter, which is the buyer and seller or whoever else is involved. And it's so much more than that too, of course. It's a platform for notarizing things and for all kinds of other stuff that goes beyond just buying and selling. But at the root, it's something that's truly private. It's between the individuals involved, and it's nobody else's business. And it's not a thing that requires asking for permission. It's not a slightly better version of PayPal. It's something completely different and completely revolutionary. And I thought that was a given. I thought that I completely took that for granted until I went to this conference and I realized how many people now are, Bitcoin's getting big. It's getting bigger. People are hearing about it for the first time. And those people are not libertarians. And and that's fine, because if we want it to go mainstream, if we want the world to be using Bitcoin, not everybody is. It's not a requirement that you be a libertarian in order to use Bitcoin. That's the great thing about Bitcoin. It's completely neutral with respect to who uses it, and that's a good thing. But you really realize when you go to a place like this conference how kind of far it's coming from the libertarian roots of Bitcoin.
Right. Now, a couple points I want to bring up was that, well, first off, I'll say that social, gaming and gambling thing, there was two hallways. One of them, like, there was a little room off to the side, and one of them, it was one room in that, and it's right next to the bathrooms, and that was where that's where like the social gaming and gambling was going on.
I see. So basically at this conference there were two hallways. One of the hallways had the Bitcoin talks,
which had like 3 rooms, and then the other, or 2 rooms, whatever, and then the other one had this little room. I actually saw it like kind of from the outside for a minute, and I just thought it was all really kind of a joke,
there wasn't much mingling between the two, which I think was kind of the point.
Yeah, that might have been.
Come to these two conferences; they're going on at once. But they really didn't. People didn't really mix, as far as I knew.
Right. That might have been the plan, and it should have, like you said, with the idea that Bitcoin is kind of, or used to be seen as synonymous, and I think by everybody, used to be seen as synonymous with liberty.
Yeah.
People into gambling, you'd think would be very, very interested in Bitcoin. And so I know there was at least one talk there given as an introduction to Bitcoin to the social gamers and gambling crowd. And so I hope that they caught some attention from that, because again, a lot of the social gaming and gambling, I mean, those are crowds that are getting kind of regulated too, especially the gambling end. Of course, that's been regulated for a long time, depending on where you are.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, and it seems like the difference is, yes, gambling has been regulated for a long time, but within the gambling industry, if you know the right people and if you're friends with the right politicians, then you get their permission. You get a license.
Yeah.
And that is not what I want to see Bitcoin become.
No,
only for the people who have greased the right palms. No, Bitcoin is for everybody.
Yeah. And that's the second point I want to bring up too. I mean, well, there's a lot of points I want to bring up, but the second point right now is that, I mean, in the white paper, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you are, in my opinion, a genuine Bitcoin expert, far more than me. In the white paper that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote, I mean, if I remember correctly, this is a 9-page white paper, he laid out very explicitly that government involvement in money is a problem, that Bitcoin was designed to overcome regulation. And that's part of the program.
Yeah.
Now, So with that being true, the other thing, my own experience is that I couldn't believe it the first time I heard about Bitcoin outside of New Hampshire. Now, I don't mean to sound like elitist, because that happens where people say it's like, oh yeah, all these people talking about New Hampshire, they just want everybody to come to New Hampshire. They don't care about anywhere else, and they're regionalist assholes or whatever. I don't want to sound like that. But really, I didn't know, that like anybody even really cared outside of New Hampshire. Like, I thought New Hampshire was the place. But now you meet people that have no idea what involvement New Hampshire had in Bitcoin's mainstream acceptance, in Bitcoin's, rise. And it's important to note, because Gavin Andresen was a fan of Free Talk Live.
Yeah. And he lives pretty close. He lives in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think now he lives in Australia.
Oh,
but he did live in Massachusetts. Right. But anyway, Gavin Andresen approached Free Talk Live about Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Okay, it wasn't the other way around.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And that's why all of our friends started using Bitcoin in 2011.
Right. We knew the guy. The guy was a fan. The guy's liberty-minded.
Right, and they got it. I mean, Free Talk Live is a show that we're both involved with, and it's a show about freedom, period. It's news and news and ideas from a libertarian perspective explicitly. They don't hide that at all, and they're not shy about it and the ideas of freedom. And the audience that listens to a show like that, they got Bitcoin, and they got it early, and
Quite
they got
a few
it right away.
Yeah.
Now, I know Bitcoin was around since 2009 or something, or even earlier than we found out about it.
Sure.
But I have to say, that's pretty early.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of Bitcoin, it's very, very early. It was Free Talk Live, as far as its adoption or spreading the message, you could say, of Bitcoin, was extremely early. And not just Free Talk Live.
This is a national radio show.
Right, and not just Free Talk Live, because the first time I heard about, or one of the first times I heard about it, was Gavin Andresen was talking about the Free State Project, and he was doing a kind of a faucet with the Free State Project saying, hey, sign up, send an email or whatever, or, and I'll send you some free Bitcoins.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This wasn't with Free Talk Live. This wasn't with anybody else. He didn't go to China and say, hey, yeah, you're in China. You love China. Here, have some Bitcoins. You know what I mean? He did it specifically to support the Free State Project and to get people in New Hampshire interested. Okay, now you can say that's a great marketing on his point, okay, because generally people that move to New Hampshire for the Free State Project are initially passionate souls anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a good market.
They're the activists.
Yeah, it's a good market you want to get because they're going to spread stuff out, and they are just by their nature very passionate about things, the things that they're into. Okay, they have reasons for it, and again, that's a great marketing crowd to grab. So there's that, but it wasn't just marketing. He really believes in this stuff. Again, he was
Absolutely.
a fan. Yeah, he was a fan of Free Talk Live, and he supports the Free State
Best
Project.
$50 he ever spent, by the way.
Yeah, right.
I interviewed Gavin like 6 months ago in San Jose at this conference that we went to also, and he said that he spent like $50 and he bought 10,000 Bitcoins.
Yeah,
and that was to fund. Can you imagine that? That was to fund the Bitcoin faucet, which at the time when it started out, it was giving away 5 Bitcoins for free.
Right.
To anybody. Like, all you had to do is visit the website, give them a Bitcoin address, and at that time it was only the Bitcoin QT client that was available.
Right.
And you would get your 5 free Bitcoins.
Yep, I remember very, very well the whole thing. And and I guess part of my point, again, I'm trying not to sound like elitist or anything about this, but New Hampshire was a big part of Bitcoin. It may have been.
Libertarians were a big part of Bitcoin since the beginning.
Exactly.
And I think they are why Bitcoin is where it is today.
Yes, they are.
Because they've been promoting it, and they had the vision, and they had the foresight, and they had the passion to be able to see why Bitcoin was so cool.
Right, exactly.
And if there's one thing that libertarians hate, it's when things get watered down.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a fact. So in the annals of history, when someone writes a history of Bitcoin, because whether Bitcoin, rises or falls, okay, in the end, whether it's here to stay or it goes away, libertarianism is going to be chapter 1. Okay,
yes.
And Free Talk Live and the Free State Project, all that stuff are going to be pretty integral to it. So,
as long as somebody who's
as long as
the
they're
right
honest.
person is writing the history books, yeah,
as long as they're honest about it. And boy, if Bitcoin fails, I can't imagine why they wouldn't want to be honest about it. Then the truth will get out. But anyway, so I guess I feel, admittedly, when I go to these things and people don't know what Free Talk Live is, or they don't know what the Free State Project is, I find it odd and insulting to some degree, because these people are going around and they're at these events and they're talking like, oh yes, I am an authority on Bitcoin, yet you know nothing of its origin.
Yeah, they found out about Bitcoin 6 months ago or a couple months ago.
Right, and they haven't bothered to study the history, and the history's out there.
Yes, but they smelled money, Brian, and they started a Bitcoin company, and because it has the word bit or coin in it, it got money.
Yeah, no,
from
I
the
understand.
VCs who also don't know much about Bitcoin. But, generally speaking, there are some who do.
There's some
and
who do.
And I talked to some who do. But,
I heard one interview you had with a VC there, who the guy was clearly brilliant.
Yes,
in fact, actually, I recognized the guy. He was on the cover of Black Enterprise a while back.
Yeah, he was a big deal for sure.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah, and he knew about Bitcoin since 2011.
Right, exactly. So,
but a lot of these companies,
No, right, and now maybe this is a flaw in what I expect from other people, okay? But when you are putting something on the line yourself, be it through your investment in Bitcoin or your business in Bitcoin, whatever the case may be, it doesn't just have to be Bitcoin. It could be anything. If you're a Christian or whatever you identify yourself with or your business revolves around, I generally expect the person to do their homework and to have an idea of the origin of the thing that they're into. That way I have the confidence knowing that they know what the hell they're talking about. And now I'm not saying that has to be true all the time. Not everybody has to know the history of the toilet to take a shit. Okay.
Okay. I think that's my favorite expression ever that you've ever said. Not everybody has to know the history of the toilet to take a shit.
Okay. But
how true.
You're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Golden Stallion of the tech world.
That's right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
That's okay. But do you know what I mean? Like, I want some fidelity, and I want some understanding.
Yes.
And I want to have common ground with people that I'm going to do business with. And I have no common ground with anybody. I didn't feel I had any common ground with anybody at that conference, or at least anybody that was
that we didn't already know.
That I wasn't already actually friends with. And I was very, very annoyed by that. I mean, now admittedly, okay, PROTOSHARES, like Invictus Innovations was there, okay?
Yeah.
And they, that is the president, the CEO, of PROTOSHARES, or the president anyway, is admittedly an Austrian economist, okay? He gets liberty.
Yes.
Like, he understands
absolutely.
that. So I don't want to be so blanket, but I already knew Dan, so... that's my point, is that the bulk of these people there, a lot of these companies, all that stuff, they just have no understanding of where Bitcoin came from. And so now, why is that important? Because if you don't understand that it was designed to not be regulated, you're going to kill it. You're going to ruin everything that it was designed to do. Okay, now, you got to be careful, because you don't want to, like I mentioned, Christians, you don't want to turn it into, what Paul says is law. And what Satoshi Nakamoto says, that's the only thing you can do with Bitcoin. No. It's open source. It's meant to be open source so that it can be modified to fit the needs of humanity.
Right, but Bitcoin is not broken, and it doesn't need to be fixed.
Right.
Like, yes, there were maybe a few things that Satoshi didn't anticipate, because how could he? But it was 2008 when he was thinking about this, right?
Sure.
But he did pretty fucking good.
Sure.
Okay, he did pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not fundamentally broken. It doesn't need to be fixed so that your social security number is attached to your Bitcoin address.
Right.
And that only the clean coins determined by a central authority can be spent.
Yep.
It does not need that, because that is not Bitcoin. That is Chase Bank, JP Morgan, or
right.
That is the banking system, the legacy banking system.
Right. And most of the companies there that were trying to say, hey, check out what we're doing, were all either security or identity. That was their business models. Was either they were into securing Bitcoins, which, not to say that that's a terrible idea.
I saw a lot of them that were just, hey, we'll help you comply with all the regulations about Bitcoin that are always changing and are never going to fully allow you to comply with them. That
was part of the security end of things, okay? Yep. It was not so much, it wasn't like CryptoKit where it's like, hey, I'm going to build you the best wallet you've ever used, okay? That's going to work on any computer you've got. All right, that's one thing. It wasn't, nobody else was like that there, in my opinion. Or, again, they were all about IDing. They're all about it was such a mess. I walked through there was a showroom area where they had all these people set up, and I walked through it, and I just admit I was getting angry. I was getting absolutely angry. I was like, what does this have to do with anything? It didn't make any sense. I mean, now granted, there were guys, that were probably pitching some very liberty-minded project like Invictus Innovations, walking around outside. They didn't have any tables set up, but everybody with the tables.
Well, there was CryptoKit, there was Armory. Armory is good. They've been there since the beginning. And
Armory's been around for a while.
The gold standard in Bitcoin storage.
Sure.
They're great. And then there were some mining companies, and I don't think they really had much to do with the whole kissing the ring of the government thing.
Yeah, but I don't trust the mining companies.
Well, yeah, you could say that, but for other reasons. I mean, they're not asking for your social security number as far as I know. Sure.
But I mean, okay, that's true. But the mining companies, to me, okay, and you don't have to agree, but I mean, the mining companies to me are the same part of the very overarching problem that our friend Andreas Antonopoulos talked about there. Okay, these are a bunch of people. Now, look, greed is good. I know the old line from Wall Street. Believe me, I understand it. Okay, understand when I say the word greed what I'm talking about. You're talking about greed with no care I'm talking about narcissism. Okay, and I think a lot of these guys, a lot of the companies that were there were just so goddamn greedy. They were just like, how can we make a ton of money off of this? With no thought at all of how can we actually free the world?
Or what the effects of that would be.
Or what the effects of that could be. And the mining companies, in my opinion, they're just as bad. They're doing all the oldest market. They don't want to build the network. They're just wanting, they're wanting straight up cash. I don't even think they care about. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. I don't think these guys actually care about, the technology.
Yeah, but do they have? I mean, okay.
No, they don't have to.
Do they have to? I mean, if they're building the Bitcoin network by accident, is that a bad thing?
No, they don't have to. But the reason I love Bitcoin, okay, and there's this very popular ad that a bunch of very popular people do on LRN.FM, okay, which is, stop using the government's money. These people don't care about that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's not in their mind about ending wars. Why is Bitcoin exciting? Because it's going to stop people from getting killed. They don't care about that. And thus, yes. I don't necessarily want to do business with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I think that's true.
Yeah, and now it's... I understand what you're saying. Like, okay, it's I'm the first person to say self-interest is all that anybody acts upon. Okay. And for a person to, want a Lamborghini off of creating an ASIC miner company, well, fuck. Okay. But, that doesn't mean I have to like them. That doesn't mean I'm going to like them for what they're doing, because there's very, very specific reasons. Look, if I just wanted another form of money, you know what I mean? I'd invest in the whole silver business. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not about that. It's not just about money. There's plenty of there were to some degree other alternatives to government-backed currencies out there that people could get interested in. Okay. The point is that this was part of the program. Like that being. Being against these, being against wars, being against government regulation and all that stuff was part of Bitcoin's, genetic makeup. Mm-hmm. And when a company isn't behind that, and isn't with that, I don't, my personal self, I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to be skeptical of the motives of a lot of these Bitcoin companies, because people, I mean, they're like sharks. They smell the money in the Bitcoin space, right? And not that it's a bad thing to have money or to make a profit or to hell, it's not a bad thing to create value for your customers and make something that rewards you because you created value for them. However, sometimes there's a question about whether these companies are actually creating value. Right? Or are they just trying to kind of market something that they make some money off of that they don't really understand, and they just, oh, it's Bitcoin, it's trendy, so yeah, let's start a Bitcoin company.
Right. I mean, and this is what Andreas is saying, is that, these people, like, it's not even, I could even get out of the whole liberty thing, okay? Now, I talk about on my show on Sovryn Tech all the time how I want companies to give value. Most of these companies, now granted the miners are coming up with something new, yes, I understand that. But most of the companies that were there and most of the talks that were there were all about how can we integrate this into the status quo. Fuck the status quo. That's not what that's the other part of Bitcoin that's exciting, is it's very forward thinking, like the ideas of smart property and all this other stuff, Yeah. And I know there's other companies, there's Megacoin, or not Megacoin, Mastercoin. Scratch that about Megacoin, who cares?
Megacoin is an altcoin, Mastercoin is something that rides on top of the Bitcoin chain. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, so no one there was really producing any actual value. And no one there was really producing like something new, like something really, really new. Now, CryptoKit was new. That was very different.
Well, one thing we can say for certain, the people who are telling you how to most efficiently lick the boot of the government regulators, they are not creating any value. They are trying to help you, and they'd probably say, well, yeah, I understand, but you have to live in the real world. You got to be pragmatic, right? Bitcoin is revolutionary. It's not meant to just simply interface nicely with the status quo. It is a disruptive technology.
Right.
It's not meant to fit in with the existing systems nicely and neatly and cleanly. It's meant to make the existing systems obsolete so that they're not necessary anymore. And so the people who are telling you how to comply and how to get in the good graces of the government people who don't understand Bitcoin, and even if they did, they wouldn't like it, they wouldn't support it. To me, I see them as, I feel often like I'm living in Atlas Shrugged. And they are like these committees, that gets together and decides how they're going to regulate everybody for the common good and so forth. And Taggart Transcontinental can't have this new metal because they're going to be too good and it's not fair, right? In the marketplace, fairness, whatever,
Right.
So those people who tell you how to most effectively kiss the butt of the government, no, I don't get excited by them. They are not bringing anything new to the table.
Yeah, absolutely, and so that was that was kind of depressing to me. I made a couple posts in various social media formats that said, if you are to judge Bitcoin by the Inside Bitcoin Conference 2013 in Las Vegas, Nevada, Bitcoin is visionless, or is as visionary as a remake of Psycho. Okay, which isn't visionary at all because they did it shot by shot. It was the same thing. And so, again, if this is what it's all about, then, Bitcoin, why bother? Why even use it?
Right.
Because
it's not that exciting.
Yeah,
right?
Because it's just system 1.5. And there's 0 point to it. And if that's what all these businesses want, well, then screw them too. And in fact, I mean, really, like, someone has to come up, and maybe they are coming up. There's a great conference coming up at Toronto that you're going to be speaking at.
Yeah.
I'll be speaking at that as well. Yeah. There's another one, I think, coming up in Texas.
Yes, Austin, Texas.
Yeah, which I think we will also be speaking at that. Okay. Those really need to change my mind. Not just by having you or I speaking there, but I need to get that general overall feel that, that there is an actual alternative economy happening right now with Bitcoin. I know to some degree it is. You have bitcoinstore.com, that some people run, and some other things. But I've got to see that for me to have a lot more confidence in this currency. Okay, fine. It's, each one of them is worth $1,000 or whatever. Okay, well, if it's then it's worth $1,000. It's not even worth a Bitcoin.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like...
the idea of a Bitcoin is way more exciting to me than the idea of $1,000.
Yeah. And right. And there's
worth so much more than $1,000.
Sure. And I don't mean I don't want it to be worth $1 million. I mean, I want it to be worth something philosophically, ideologically. I want it to have worth, and I'm not getting that at all. Okay, now Andreas Antonopoulos, he talked. It was actually the very last panel of the whole event.
Yeah,
and he talked, and he said, "Look, I came back from Argentina." He literally just flew in to Vegas from Buenos Aires.
The Argentinian Bitcoin conference was the week before, right? A couple days before,
right? And he came up and he said, he's like, look, I went there. He says, and those people were saying the government's killing us, and we've got to do something, and Bitcoin can solve this. And he said people were coming there at the risk of their own lives. They were showing up at that conference.
Yeah,
that's not $1,000. That's priceless.
That's priceless, yeah.
And nobody at that conference, except for Andreas Antonopoulos, was talking about that. Yeah. About how it's setting people free, saving lives, blah, blah, blah. Okay? It's just like, but I mean, the same thing happens with Tor. Where people are like, yeah, Tor's great so I can buy drugs. Oh, fuck the drugs. There's people who, all around the world, who rely on Tor to be able to communicate, to be able to escape oppressive regimes that they're under, to be able to do some form of rebellion.
Try being an atheist in Iran, and you'll realize why Tor is important.
Sure, right. I mean, or, Saudi Arabia is a much better example.
Saudi Arabia, sure.
Yeah. And, these things, no, they have to be valued for that first. And then they become priceless. But if people are just doing this for a big money grubbing scheme, look, I'm not interested. Yeah. I've been rich, I've been poor. I'm not interested in the riches. I'm interested in the world, the human condition literally changing. Okay, and there are plenty of people out there, some very intelligent guys who do know that Bitcoin can cause this, can make this happen, can bring on that change in the human condition, can bring on that society that so many people want. But they were not talking or presenting at the Inside Bitcoin Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. this year in 2013. And that is so unfortunate. And I walked away with a very bad taste in my mouth over the whole thing.
Yeah, I hear you, Brian. I really do. And I feel very similarly. I mean, adding to it was, I think, just the entire atmosphere of our trip. Let me describe to you what happened, just for the listeners who aren't aware because they didn't come with us. Well, getting there, we had a little bit of an adventure because there was a snowstorm in Boston and we were flying through Boston,
right.
And we had a flight cancellation. So we kind of had to add about 12 hours onto our trip, and we got there late. When we got there, we go through the airport, and, there's TSA. Dealing with the TSA never makes for a good start to a trip.
Yeah, no, that's a fact.
Take off your shoes and bend over, and it's not fun.
Yeah, in fact, real quick, a lot of people might not know this, but dealing with the TSA in little airports is oddly worse.
Marginally worse, yeah. I would say it's worse.
Yeah, than dealing with the TSA in the big airports.
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect, actually, because
right.
We had never flown out of this smaller local airport before.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know if there was a TSA. Of course there was, but, we didn't know what to expect because we'd never dealt with them before.
Right.
In the big airports, there are lines of people, and they know they have to keep that line moving. And so, or people are going to miss their flights. And so they do. They keep it moving. They have a lot of people working. And, they may bark orders at you like a drill sergeant. They may pat down your bun, which they do to me every time I have my hair in a bun. They pat down my bun as if I'm hiding something in there.
Something in your hair, yeah.
Which could possibly be true. But, and then they make you take off your shoes and put your computer in a separate bin and yada, yada. But they get you through. With the little airports, when they're screening 8 people to go on a tiny plane, they take themselves very seriously. And they do a thorough job.
Oh, yeah. And they search all the bags.
Yeah, and you get a little more scrutiny. And, we get notices that they searched our bags. Okay, fine. You can look at my toothbrush and whatever else is in there. Glad I didn't bring any sex toys on this vacation. But,
yeah, right.
And they looked at Brian's computer and they saw his sticker that said Prism Surveillance Device. That was interesting. We had a TSA agent comment on that.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the TSA agents at this little airport was rather disgruntled with his job.
That was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Because he wasn't like, oh, this job sucks, and I want to go home. He was actually saying, no, I think what I'm doing isn't good.
I didn't hear what he was saying, but he definitely, he was talking to one of the passengers about how he, wasn't really fond of the job. And it was, look, I'm just trying to pay off my mortgage. And, I think that's what most government workers are. They're just trying to get a job. They don't really, they don't really have a lot of options for whatever reason. And we saw actually a sign in the Boston airport that said 1 in 4, and they were touting this like it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It said 1 in 4 TSA agents has previously served in the military. And they made that out like it was a great thing. Now, to me, that's just militarization of the police. And if they're coming from the military, they could have been, who knows what they've been through, combat, whatever.
Right.
They are used to being treated roughly and treating other people roughly, and they are not going to be nice, untraumatized people. They're going to be people I would be hesitant to feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, not only does that say to me that the TSA is just a jobs program, a government jobs program, but it's also more insidious and scarier than that, because when you're dealing with people who have previously been in the military and then they go work for the police, they go work for the TSA.
Sure.
Then they're in positions of authority. They're vested with government authority over everyone else. They can do whatever they want. They were doing random searches of planes at the gates and passengers. And, oh, by the way, everyone who I saw get a second search was a, shall we say, ethnic-looking male.
Yeah.
And they at the little airport where we were, there was a passenger who got randomly screened. And of course, we live in white bread New Hampshire, where there are everyone is Caucasian.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe a few Asians, but there's very few other racial diversity represented in New Hampshire. And so, we're going through the line and there's 6 people being screened or whatever. And the TSA agent the last woman who was going through the line, she kind of says, "Oh, you didn't do anything wrong. This is a completely random pat down. And she takes this attractive young woman and pats her down and then is like, good, you passed the security check.
Yeah.
As if this woman is gonna blow up the plane. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was absolutely just laughable.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so, it's just such a farce. You go through these airports, and it's just such a joke. And the procedures are different in different places too. I had my hair in a bun, and that day we went through twice because we had to go to a different terminal, and we went through a couple times through the TSA. One time they patted down my hair, and another time they didn't. I guess it didn't look as dangerous the second time. Maybe it flattened out.
Yeah.
One time we went through the millimeter scanner. Another time was just through the metal detector. One time they wanted me to take my computer out of the bag. Another time they didn't. So it's inconsistent.
Right.
It's obviously these rules are not for your safety. It's just to make it look more official or whatever, or to boss you around or to dominate you even more. And so it's dealing with that puts a layer of frustration on to begin with for a libertarian.
Sure.
that you're starting out the trip with already just a layer of ugh. And on top of all this, flying, dealing with the TSA, that's frustrating enough as it is. But I see all these people going through these TSA lines. You see all these people, and these people are so just resigned, compliant. I even feel that way.
Right.
I go through, I'm like, oh, if I want to get on the plane, I gotta go. I'm not going to get there if I don't go through this line and I don't play along and pretend to have a neutral expression on my face and just suck it up and deal with it.
It's not like the terms of service when you install some software and say, well, I don't agree. It doesn't let you keep installing the software.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just like, well, I don't agree with this. Okay. Well, you're not getting on the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, just seeing that, and you look around and you see everyone's faces, and they're, some of them are making the best of it. Some are laughing, some are joking. Some of them look kind of annoyed, upset, peeved,
sure.
But they really can't do anything about it. No one protests. There was a sign also.
Well, you protest, you get locked up. I mean,
yeah, right, of course, and we don't protest because we wanted to get on the plane. So it's like you feel very powerless and helpless and defeated and resigned. And you made a joke, Brian. We got through this TSA checkpoint, and I was putting on my shoes and getting my jacket and my scarf and everything. And you said, and I picked up everything and started walking away. And you said, I think you left your dignity in that gray bin. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. It's just, you feel so violated. You feel so disgusted. And, so, and with that in mind, and then you go through the airport and you get into the gates, you're about to board the plane, and the news is on. And we don't watch the news. We don't even have a TV in our house where we live. And, watching the TV, it's just one thing after another that they're trying to scare people with, or it's just the most banal, unintelligent kind of conversation. Yeah. So it kind of alternates between, terrorism, be afraid, and stupid crap that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, we're starting our trip, and we were starting off already on a very kind of frustrated, lonely feeling, hopeless note,
Yeah.
And it's true. You often feel, when you're into liberty and you're a thinking person, you often feel like you're living in this world that just nobody can relate to you.
Yeah. Well, it's
and you
tough.
kind of are.
Yeah, right. And because, you
are.
You look at it, and you take, we step out into this quote unquote real world. I mean, it's not somehow more real than
no,
than
we
the other
live in a
one.
bubble. We can definitely create an environment that feels more comfortable to us.
Sure. But I mean, you step out into that, and like, you can't help but like look at everything, as in, like, whatever's on television just looks insane. It's like, what is that? Mm-hmm. Why are people arguing about this? What's going on? And it's not like we don't keep like totally out of the news. I mean, we do radio shows, we do podcasts where the news is the order of the day. But I mean, it's like what is being constantly, what your eyes are constantly being assaulted by is, like you said, it's either, just fear mongering or something so ridiculously banal it doesn't matter about anything at all. And yet that's what they do. And then, you go through the TSA line and you can't help but, Okay. Here's a statement I've yet to make anywhere, and I'll make it now.
Ooh, we got a Brian Sovryn exclusive.
Now, I mean, granted, okay, I am a dilettante in conspiracy theories, okay? I'm a dilettante. I don't accept them, generally, but, ever since PRISM, ever since Edward Snowden pushed all this stuff out, I think it's about time we might not want to be so insulting towards conspiracy theorists. And we might not want to so quickly be skeptical and toss stuff out of hand when conspiracies get presented to us. Because guess what? These conspiracy theorists that have been talking since the 70s or 80s or what, even earlier maybe, whatever, aren't wrong anymore on so many things that so many people considered impossible.
Oh, if only a tinfoil hat could protect me. I mean, because it can't. But.
Yeah, please, I'd wear one. Okay. But my point being is that, when you go through the TSA line, I cannot help, and I can slightly relate because I can think back to how we used to have to some degree kind of process people whenever say the platoon I was in would be
in the military,
in the military, okay, and we would be in a certain area, a certain grid, and we would, we'd have to figure out, how many people are here, we got to get people out of their houses, and we need to process them, and we got to make sure everything's secure and all that stuff, and it can't help but feel very much like that. To where they are testing and conditioning people for the most efficient way to possibly be processed for what I don't know. But it smacks of it easy, and I'm not going to so quickly write that off.
Yeah.
That's not what that is all about. I don't mean to turn a Bitcoin special into something, that goes to crazy town, but I don't think it's so crazy anymore.
No, and it's all related.
Yeah,
and it is because the way that the TSA processes people, the way that people shuffle through those lines resignedly and dejectedly, that is what the banking system is also becoming and has become.
Oh, sure.
You can have a bank account, but you can't really use it.
Yep.
Because if you try to put too much money in or take too much money out, or if you try to access your savings, sorry, we can't do that. You can't send this much money over some arbitrary line. Geographically, you can't deposit more than $1,000 in cash. You can't pay a credit card bill with cash. You can't do all these different things, and it's become TSA-ified. And the bank workers, which used to be nice people who worked in the financial industry, have become just agents of the state. They have to report you for certain things.
They're just a bunch of snitches, and they have to.
Quote, suspicious at all?
Yeah.
If you deposit too much cash, if you have a job that pays in cash, in fact, banks like a lot of online banking, and a lot of times you open a new bank account or whatever. If you don't have a check direct deposited from your employer, then they look at you suspiciously.
Right.
That raises the suspicion level, and I'm sorry, some people are self-employed, including myself.
Yeah, right.
So I'm concerned about this. If I do a voiceover for somebody and I get a check or a bank transfer or whatever, or maybe I get paid in cash, maybe I get paid in Bitcoin and I sell it for cash to pay some bills.
Right.
I'm going to be looked at askance. And that doesn't feel good as someone who's innocent completely. I've not committed any crimes. I'm not selling drugs. I'm not whatever, as if that was even, a crime. But
yeah,
you feel like a criminal in ordinary life so often.
Sure.
And it's not a good feeling.
Sure.
It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, no, it is, and one last point with the TSA that I want to make is that, if they're designed to keep me safe, I'm not making fun of anybody who is overweight or is unhealthy or has issues. Okay, I'm not. But if the purpose of the person is to defend me and protect me, myself, I'm going to hire a bodyguard that's in great shape, and just take a look at these TSA agents. Not the case.
Don't look like they could chase someone down in the airport.
Yeah, if someone went for a good clip, and wanted to do some damage, they're not the ones that are going to catch them. And people say, well, they have guns, so that's the great equalizer. Well, that's bullshit. Because a gun, especially a pistol, is worthless. It goes down from 99% accuracy okay, within 3 feet, within 3 to 6 feet. As soon as you leave 6 feet, which a guy in good shape can do that in a matter of not even seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, that accuracy of how, the chances, the accuracy, the percentage of accuracy.
There probably is one of them every 6 feet in the airport because they don't say thousands standing around for nothing.
Right. It drops to 40%. It drops less than 50-50 as soon as you get out of that field.
Yeah.
So no, I don't want them to have guns because...
And not to mention that, what are they going to do? A shootout in the airport? It's full of civilians?
Yeah, there's just tons of people everywhere.
Yeah.
What exactly are you going to do?
What if the person takes a hostage? They could easily do that.
Yeah. Now, I will say one more point. Now, I just thought of this. I mean, last time I think we flew out, we were flying out of Manchester, and there were a lot of military there. I did not see that at any of the airports I was at.
Right.
I did not see armed military, which there were at, last time that I recall flying. So I guess that's a little bit better, but geez,
yeah,
it's just not a situation that I'm not okay with it. It doesn't even make sense because the military doesn't let you have to pass physicals, tests, physical fitness tests, all kinds of things to be able to stay in the military. The TSA's job is being billed as very, very similar, and yet that condition does not need to be met.
Right.
So, now...
Well, it doesn't for police either. I mean...
No, right, that's true.
There's been stories about that for a long time.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's worthwhile to have this rant because it's all completely true, And this is the frame of mind. This kind of sets the stage for this conference where we go. And, you just see a lot of people, and please, I don't use the word sheeple, okay? I can't stand that word. I think it's very... it's very insulting, and no, it's not going to change anyone's mind if you call them a sheeple or a shurson, as we like to say, right?
Insulting someone gets you nowhere.
No, but when you go through an airport like that, and everybody's kind of just trying to look as, quote, normal as possible, minding their own business, just very quietly, kind of, dare I say, sheepishly, just going about their business and, afraid to do anything that seems out of the ordinary. That's a little frightening.
Yep.
And that's very confining. As somebody who does not, as somebody personally, you and me, and this is one of the reasons why I love you so much, is we don't live our lives on par with the normal.
No,
we don't,
not at all.
We don't fit in with the status quo. We are not, we don't blend in,
Yeah.
We are unusual, and that's good. Yeah. And that's healthy, and that's just great. But being in one of these environments where you're gonna play the game, it wears on you, psychologically.
Sure.
To fit in.
And and I want to bring this up. I mean, because we were saying how Vegas just didn't seem to impress.
Yeah.
Like the city itself.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that now.
Yeah.
Yep.
The city itself just didn't impress. And speaking of not living normal, let me tell you, Vegas may be impressive, okay, for someone that follows all the societal mores, that get imposed upon us socially. But boy, if every day of your life you're already pretty much living it up, or at least you've gotten rid of this like judgment mind, this is, well, boy, that's wrong. Vegas means nothing. It's just another place, and in fact, if anything, it's worse because it just looks so damn chintzy.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing special.
No.
Right. So we walk into this hotel, and we spent most of the time in this hotel, which I did not expect. I expected we were going to go outside in 4 days.
Right.
No, we didn't see the light of day in 4 days.
Yeah.
We were just inside this hotel. So we get there, and it's this giant lobby with TV screens up the wall, 20-foot ceilings, playing music videos of pop songs. And in the, there's fancy tiles, chandeliers, but not just fancy, gaudy, chintzy, flashy, really over the top and not nice looking, like just chintzy.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. And there's a rodeo in town at the same time. So not only are we, we're obviously not the only convention, like a convention of 1,000 people, which I think is the amount of attendees there were at this convention. A convention of 1,000 people was small, very small for this place. There were probably, how many people, there were probably at least 10,000 people in that hotel, maybe more, maybe 20,000. It was fucking-normous. It was huge.
Yeah, the thing was its own town. Might as well be.
Yeah, I've never seen a hotel that big. It reminded me of my college campus, actually. I went to UMass Amherst, which is not a small campus. 18,000 undergraduates, okay? But this hotel was exactly like that, except maybe a little nicer. And with more drunk people than my college campus.
Yeah.
It took, our room was in one tower, so we had to go in this tower. And it took 20 minutes to walk from our room to the convention center where the Bitcoin conference was.
Right.
So there was no going back to the room and getting a drink or whatever. You just had to go, you had to stay there. But that was okay because there were 4 Starbuckses at least in the place.
Yeah.
There were 4 separate Starbuckses just in this one hotel. And and not only that, but if you want to go anywhere else besides the convention center and the room that we were staying in, it was like another 20 to 30 minute walk.
Sure.
And they even had these moving escalator sidewalks, not escalators, but they were moving sidewalks.
Yeah.
In certain parts of the hotel because it was just so big and there's just so much walking.
Yeah.
So it was gigantic. It was sprawling, and my ex-boyfriend Jeff was from Arizona, and I used to go out west with him, like Arizona, Utah, Nevada, in that area. We took a couple trips there, and he would always say, "This place is sprawling." Like he would talk about cities like Phoenix and Scottsdale, Arizona, and he would say, "Oh, they're just sprawling. They're just like shitting themselves all over the desert."
Yeah.
And I never really understood what he meant because I wasn't used to it out there. But now I understand because this hotel was sprawling. It was so inefficiently organized.
Yeah.
It could have been possible easily to save space. But it looked like, I don't know if it was hastily constructed. Some people were saying that. Or if it was just... It doesn't matter how much space it takes up because you're out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, or it's regulations or what.
Or they just want you to have to walk past all these thousands of slot machines.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another reason for it. But that, for whatever reason, it was sprawling.
Yeah, no, it was very, very poorly designed. I mean, I've been, in some other rather large hotels in America. None of them really, I don't recall any of them ever being set up like that.
It was more like a mall.
Yeah, I've been in some hotels that are actually in deserts as well, and they usually have like tram systems, that
Wow.
that you can get onto right out of the elevator. Okay, and so not that I'm afraid of a walk, I mean, that's fine, but if you're there doing business happens in the nanoseconds.
Yeah.
And you can't do a 20-minute walk from your hotel room like that.
It becomes 40 minutes because you go there and back.
Right. I mean, that is in, you can't have that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really poor. But really,
not only that, like if you were walking through the fresh air, it would be one thing, but you are walking in
smoke-filled.
Oh yeah, it was the smokiest. There were people giving out free tobacco. There were hot girls giving out free tobacco in the lobby. There were the smell of cigar smoke was everywhere. You could not get away from it. It just hung in the air, and it had carpeting, and it just never comes out. Once you have cigar smoke or cigarette smoke in those places with carpeting, it just never gets removed, no matter how much they clean it.
Right.
And there were these slot machines everywhere. And you had to just walk past endless rows of slot machines, and there were people there pretty much at all hours of the day and night.
Yeah.
No matter what time you went there, you couldn't really tell what time it was because there were no daylight, no signs of daylight. It was kind of the same dim lighting all day.
Right.
Just the slot machines, bad pop music playing that I don't normally listen to. So I heard a lot of these popular songs for the first time.
Yeah.
And slot machines and the smell of cigarette smoke. And now, Brian, you can attest to this. I get sensory overload going to the grocery store.
Yes.
When I go to a store and there's like rows of products, I look at them and it's hard for me to carry on a conversation at the same time, and it's hard for me to not have my eyes just drawn to them.
Right.
And I look at stuff, and I there were a number of times where I was trying to have a conversation, and we would end up, for whatever reason, like facing the slot machines, and I couldn't concentrate on the conversations. I would just keep I'd be looking at these blinking lights, and it was just it was too much. It was too distracting.
Yeah.
So all that, and then, like I mentioned before, this rodeo is in town, okay? So there are cowboys and cowgirls all over the hotel wearing these giant sparkling crosses. Yeah. Everyone had a cross.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a Western thing or a cowboy thing, but the guys had hats and big belt buckles and boots, and the women had boots and crosses.
Yep.
And rhinestones.
And they're sitting down playing the games and everything, which, I mean, that bugs me to no end, because it's like, wait a minute, you're Christian. You're in Sin City.
They have a big cross, so that makes up for it.
Yeah, right. The bigger the cross, the more
yes.
sin you can commit without needing to ask for forgiveness. I guess that's how that works. Boy, that. But
those are not the sins that I'm interested in. I mean,
right. That's the next thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we said to each other, I can't remember who said it, but we live in sin.
Yeah.
We can have as much fun as we want. Not are we literally living in sin, which is being in a relationship and cohabitating but not being married, under the traditional definition of living in sin. But we also, if we want to have fun, we can do it in our normal hometown.
Yeah.
We can do everything fun that we want to right here in New Hampshire.
Right.
And a lot of it we can do right here in our house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
so what's the point? Why do we need to go to Las Vegas, fly across the country, get, overeat, overdrink, that was the other thing, the food, the buffets. Oh, the gluttony. It was I don't normally say that because I love a good feast. I love a good meal, a good food. But oh my God, it was so easy to overeat at these places. Mm-hmm. It was so easy to just keep eating and eating and drinking until it's just too much. Everything had the volume turned up to 11, and I don't need that. I don't need that to have a good time.
Yeah, well,
I can have a good time with the volume on 4 or 5, and it's just okay.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, okay, and I can't believe we might have to actually say this, but I'll say it. We don't want to regulate any of this, okay? Wow.
No way.
Before someone says that, it's like, oh, they're against gluttony. I can't believe it.
No, some people do need this, I suppose, because a lot of people have boring jobs or they have conservative jobs.
Yeah.
I understand that. I've been there. I've been there recently, okay? I've been there. And I understand why people go to Vegas, because it is, as people say, it's the release valve of the nation.
Yeah, it's the pressure valve of
America.
Yeah, of America. It really, I mean,
And you can tell, and it's very obvious when you go there and you see that stuff.
Right. But I mean, the things turned up to 11 are the wrong damn things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, so you can smoke in a building. Man, you are one hell of a rebel. Good for you.
It's only because they banned it everywhere else that's a special thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many things that just aren't turned up to 11. It's like, wow, all these women here are wearing low-cut stuff. Well, women wear low-cut stuff everywhere. That's not that big a deal.
Well, there were prostitutes in the hotel.
Yeah, okay. Now that's something, but that wasn't nearly as necessarily advertised as I think it, in comparison to other things like advertising tobacco, advertising all this.
Right.
That end of the sex end of the spectrum was not being advertised.
No.
In my opinion. And that's the thing they should have turned up to 14. And they didn't. So it felt like, I know I have some listeners in Vegas, okay, and they're great people, and Vegas in and of itself. My point in being is just that I didn't feel Vegas was any better than any other place.
No, it wasn't that special to me. And you know what? We stayed in this one hotel the whole time, and it was on the Strip, admittedly. So obviously we didn't see all Vegas has to offer. We had a very limited view, and we were just kind of confined to this one conference.
Sure, we didn't go to the Bunny Ranch.
No, we didn't. But I have looked at their website before, and it didn't really seem like it was worth going, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
It didn't seem that great.
Yeah, and yes, I know there's great concerts that happen there, but I mean, these concerts.
All those.
Yeah, I mean, but the concerts can happen anywhere. I can go see Britney Spears. I mean, she's come to Manchester before. I mean, it's not like. It's just there's nothing there that holds all this wondrous appeal that the media seems to give Las Vegas.
Yeah.
In fact,
I was left with this feeling of I don't get it.
Right.
Why is this so great again?
Yeah,
What's the big deal?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone there before. Oftentimes, those for a conference, and at the time, I was also Christian. So
you needed the release valve.
well, that's the thing is, I didn't use it because I was actually I was a Christian that actually followed his own goddamn book. Unlike all the other ones, apparently.
I guess you didn't have a big shiny cross.
No. Yeah, because there's this little verse that says, don't store up things that moth and rust can destroy, meaning that your treasure should be in heaven and not on earth. But I guess most Christians just don't buy that. Anyway, I mean. Heaven forbid, quote unquote, that I actually tried to follow the rules. I know that was crazy. Anyway, So Las Vegas, I was never really able to totally take advantage of Las Vegas. I think I might have gone there for like a creation entertainment event when I was like 18 or 19. But at that point, I mean, I didn't need.
What's creation?
Creation entertainment used to, I mean, I guess they still kind of do, throw the largest conventions pretty much in the world. I mean, they're really a great time, but at those things you don't need to take advantage of anything unique in the area. You just take advantage of the convention, and boy, there's plenty to do.
Sure.
But anyway, Las Vegas, just nothing special. So, and I don't mind getting that point out. I don't mind spending time talking about that to get that point out, because one of the things I like to do with Sovryn Tech is to lay out the bullshit, at the things that you are being told that are absolute crap. Yeah. And one of those things is that somehow Las Vegas is special. It's not.
It's not. No,
okay?
it's
There's
not.
nothing there. I mean, you can have all the good times that you have in Las Vegas. I guarantee you. In fact, even better, you could have in New Hampshire. Or in your own home.
Absolutely.
So, as long as you're willing to deal with the fact that social conventions come with, can come with baggage at times, or going against social conventions can come with baggage at times. Which, if you're not willing to go through that, then please stop trying to say that you want freedom, because you don't.
Now, let me ask you something, Brian.
Sure.
You're fond of extolling the virtues of the 80s and 90s. And
absolutely.
How opulent and flashy everything was.
Yes.
Did you find any resemblance to what we saw in Vegas to the things that you like about the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of neon. There was a lot of
gold,
a lot of all this stuff. I mean, but most of it just really looked cheap, and nobody really seemed to be like in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't just the fact that there was a bunch of neon around, wasn't just like to make it look cool. Okay, I mean, yes, that's what it was there for. But I mean, people had like a certain attitude, like they treated it almost as like, yes, this is how one lives. Mm-hmm. As to where when you go to Vegas, it's like, like it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
And so the 80s, so it wasn't being celebrated.
Yeah.
It was being like quietly, yes, I know I'm being denigrated by being here. And, or I mean, it was just, there was just the people didn't have the same attitude there. Granted, I was surrounded by a bunch of cowboys. Now, I don't have problems with cowboys, okay? That's all right if you're a cowboy. But it just, I don't know, everything seemed so hypocritical there. Definitely a lot of that flash, from the 80s and 90s, but the attitude didn't exist.
Yeah, in fact, the people that I saw walking around, I mean, maybe I'm reading into it, but I didn't really see a lot of people that were like really happy seeming.
No.
Like a lot of them look kind of depressed.
Sure.
Maybe too drunk, like a little gray from all the cigarette smoke. And, they just didn't really look like they were. It's supposed to be this adult Disneyland, but they didn't look like they were having fun.
No, I saw nothing of an adult Disneyland there.
Yeah.
And nothing of the sort. Unless, I guess, if your definition of Disneyland is smoking cigars and pulling on a slot machine instead of your dick, then okay, fine. Then I guess it was the adult Disneyland. But
those slot machines are just Skinner boxes.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they just, I don't understand the appeal at all.
No, I don't either. I don't know.
I've never even done Bitcoin gaming, actually. I mean, like, I know some people who, I guess I know people who have done Bitcoin gambling, and some of them are smart, like some of them play poker and they win.
Sure.
And that's great, good for them. But
sure.
It's just, it's never felt good to me to do that.
Yeah, I'm not doing an anti-gambling rant by any means. I'm just saying is that you're being sold on the idea that this is like where you can engage in sins, and it's like, well, there's more sins than smoking, drinking, and playing and gambling. They're
Yeah. Oh, but could you imagine if those slot machines? Could you imagine if instead of feeding them quarters and nickels, you could send them some Bitcoin? You could send them Satoshis.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would be a vast improvement.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You wouldn't have to carry around a bucket of change. You wouldn't have to go break the change or whatever.
Yeah, and in fact, I don't think anybody even really talked about doing that.
Yeah, I heard a couple of people, but it was outside of the conference.
Yeah, it wasn't any of the actual
friends.
speakers.
Yeah.
So, and this is a point I want to bring up, is that Mediabistro, in my opinion, like the New York conference was a little bit better.
That was at least very classy. I mean, you saw some opulence in that hotel.
Yeah.
That the New York
the New Yorker,
it was at the New Yorker hotel, so
yeah,
it was obviously a very nice hotel. But
but
that was very tasteful as compared to the chits that is Vegas.
Frankly. No, it's true. I mean, the New Yorker's nice, but still both of them I didn't think were very, like, if we're talking about this new economy. Okay, but that's the thing, is that we're not talking about a new economy.
No.
It's like, okay, how can we just get rich within the old one? Or how can we just, like, somehow squeeze us into the...
slightly easier for people to shop so that they'll give us more money?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's important too. Like, I acknowledge it. There's a value to that. But it seemed to be very... You're right. There wasn't a lot of outside the box thinking of, like, let's take this to the next level. There was a lot of, how can we sort of make Bitcoin work with the system and make us lots of money,
right? And
the existing system,
and everything, all of it, both events really just felt like the way things are, and that sucks. I mean, that really, like, and I don't know what exactly would be like the kind of venue that I'd want to see the future getting presented in. I'm not sure, but it just, again, there's just, I didn't feel it was visionary. I didn't feel it was like, I don't know. It all felt like an homage to what we already exist in.
Yeah.
And this isn't just the fact, like, I'll admit this, okay, full disclosure. I'm an ad exec for Free Talk Live. I've contacted Mediabistro for both events saying, hey, we've got Free Talk Live has the largest Bitcoin audience in the world. Okay. In fact, for most of the world, we introduced Bitcoin.
Yes.
Okay. And they wouldn't even write back to me. Okay.
Wow.
And I think that's so fucking slimy. I think that's so ridiculous, because again, what are they doing? What is Mediabistro doing? They don't care about Bitcoin. They don't, you know what I mean? It's just.
Yeah. It seems like they want to follow the trends, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're then interested in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And they put out, I don't know. It's really annoying, because they worked with other outfits, and I didn't understand, it's not for a lack of marketing on my part. They won't respond to me. You know what I mean? And I don't look any less official.
They really won't respond to you.
Yeah, well, that's fine, because like Andreas said he's not going to do another North American conference.
Yeah,
and good for him.
Yeah, good for him. He had we recorded a Let's Talk Bitcoin show, which I'm sure you'll be able to hear at letstalkbitcoin.com.
Yeah,
and it was a conference wrap up, and most of it honestly was just Andreas talking about how he's so sick of this stuff. And he's not doing another conference in North America because they're not focusing on the issues that make him excited and passionate and interested about Bitcoin,
right?
Which is how it can free the world,
right?
And how it can help people.
Yeah,
the other 6 billion. That's what he always says. The Bitcoin for the other 6 billion, and good for him. I mean, we let him talk about that, and I think he has something really, really valuable to say.
Yeah, I was very inspired, and I didn't have the same perspective he did, because he's been going all around the world about Bitcoin.
Yeah, and he's originally from Greece, so he has a little bit more
and
culture than us white folks.
Yeah, but I mean, when he brought on, when he expressed, his feelings on it, I mean, it really resonated with me in so many ways. And so, yeah, and I don't mean to sound like, anti-profit or whatever, but again, I didn't feel
Profit is not a dirty word, but neither is value.
Neither is value.
Like
that's exactly it. And I didn't see anything there that brought value to my life. And and everybody there was just like, well, you gotta imagine this is like the internet in 1994. Now, I'm not going to bring up the point that, well, internet also had a 1999. Okay,
yes, it did.
I'm not bringing that point up. The point I'm trying to bring up is that, look, the internet was made great by people. Okay, and by open source projects. It was not made great by VCs. Well, if the VCs didn't give them the money, the people couldn't do shit. No, that's a crock. Okay, that's the dumbest ass capitalist argument I've ever heard in my life. That is stupid. All right, wow. No, there was.
You don't want to be an ass capitalist.
No. Oh, it's just not true. It's about people and what they figured out that they wanted to do with it. Okay, that's what it was about.
Well, maybe we'll see something similar with Bitcoin, because now, a lot of these early adopters of Bitcoin, if you got in early enough, or when Bitcoin hits $10,000,
sure,
alternatively, which is just a matter of time, it's probably going to happen next year.
Sure.
You don't need a VC. You can bootstrap your company. And if you really have a good idea, put your money where your mouth is. And you can finance it yourself with your Bitcoins.
I can only hope that that's what happens.
Me too.
But this idea that the internet was built on VCs, no, the internet bubbled on VCs. Okay.
Then Bitcoin may have its 1999 at some point too. And
it might.
I'm sure a lot of these Bitcoin startups are not going to succeed.
Yeah, it might, and then hopefully it will continue on into the future. But I was just, it was very stressful to see that, and then just like to even hit it home more about the lack of I don't want to use this word, but I will. The lack of philosophical awareness and basis of what everybody was doing was even more clear when a camera crew came up to you.
Oh God, this story. Okay, I think I'm going to have to do a monologue about something like this for Let's Talk Bitcoin, because now we're doing monologues, each of the hosts individually. We're not just doing host segments.
I think you should. You're welcome to talk about it here.
I think I will. I got to think about exactly how I'm going to say it, but because I want to be careful. I want people to listen to me and to hear me when I say this. But right now on Sovryn Tech, I'm just going to kind of speak my mind.
Yeah, let it rip.
It's a smaller show. People know us.
That's right.
So, okay, what happened was at the Inside Bitcoins conference, I was there with Let's Talk Bitcoin. I had my press badge on. I was doing interviews with my little microphone. And a camera crew came up to me. And I forget the name of the outlet, but it was something I'd vaguely heard of before. It's basically a financial news website. And it was two guys. They came up to me, and the guy who was on camera says, "I'd like to interview you because you're a woman." And I thought in my head, oh, gee, he wants to interview me because I have a vagina. Isn't that great? I'm so excited I'm going to be on TV. No, actually, I wasn't excited. I was actually pretty offended, because here I am trying really hard to be recognized in the Bitcoin community and accepted for the things that I do. And I work really hard to tell people about Bitcoin, to be a part of the show, to participate in Let's Talk Bitcoin, to generate interesting and meaningful content. And no, he wants to interview me because I have tits.
Right.
So I said, okay. And then he goes, oh, like, what's your name or something like that. And I showed him my badge, and I said, well, actually, I'm Stephanie Murphy. I'm a host of Let's Talk Bitcoin. It's a popular Bitcoin podcast, and it is popular. Yes, it is. It's got over 20,000 downloads every show. There's thousands and thousands of people who listen to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Yeah. And it's growing. And it's getting bigger all the time. Yeah. And it's only been on for 7 months.
Yeah, and there's companies that recognize its importance too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's nothing to sneeze at. This is not a small show.
Right.
And I'm not trying to boast or anything. I'm just saying I'm not a nobody who has nothing going for me at this conference besides the fact that I have 2 X chromosomes.
Right.
I'm not just simply a woman.
Right.
And so I said, yeah, I'm with Let's Talk Bitcoin. And he says, oh, good, we'll get you some press coverage or something like that. Or we'll get you some TV exposure. And I thought to myself, I've never heard of your fucking website. Yeah. Why should I, gee, thanks for the press coverage.
Yeah, right.
So they say, so then they start interviewing me, and then they say, so when did you find out about Bitcoin? And I said, well, I found out about it in 2011. And the guy says, "Wow, that's earlier than me. I found out about it like 6 months ago."
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, I knew about Bitcoin before you. And then he does the thing that I think really insults, like people do this to black people. They say, "So, what does the black community think about this issue?" You know, as if they're all one collective hive mind.
That's
as
right.
if they're all linked together. They're on the black radio frequency, and they all know exactly what everyone else thinks, and they all have the same opinion about everything because they have the same color skin, so they must have the same opinion. He did that to me. He said, "So, you know, why aren't there more women at this conference?" And I said, I'm thinking in my head, look. Because I know this is a really radical idea. I know this is a very radical notion, but guess what? Women are people and women are individuals, and we all have our own ideas. We all have our own opinions. We have our own thoughts. They're different. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Just because we all have similar parts doesn't mean that we're all the same, thinking the same thing all the time. So he says, why aren't there more women at this conference? And I said, well, you know, I don't know, but I think the best thing that we can do to get more women and all kinds of people into these events is just take the time to tell your friends about Bitcoin. Take the time to sit down with them and explain it to them and find out what they are interested in and, you know, what makes them excited about Bitcoin, and then help them understand it and help them use it. Give them some coin.
Sure.
You know, get them. You can tell people about Bitcoin for an hour, you can give them a lecture, or you can give them some Bitcoin and get them started and teach them how to use it.
Say, hey, look, I'm going to give you some money.
And then I said, you know, I got my first Bitcoins when somebody took the time and trouble to give me some Bitcoins. And at the time it was Bitcoins. It wasn't just Mbits.
Right.
And you know, teach me how to set up a wallet. Somebody else taught me how to set up a wallet and use it. And then the rest I kind of figured out, and I read about it more on my own. I got the bug at that point. And then, so it was a very short interview. It was probably less than a minute. I think maybe he could tell I was starting to get a little riled up. I definitely got the impression that this particular news outlet was not exactly, shall we say, super educated about gender issues. I'm trying to say this in the nicest way possible. If they probably would come from the side of things, or the camp that believes that you know, women are biologically not able to understand science as well as men, and women could not possibly understand something like encryption.
Yeah.
And the way we really get more women into Bitcoin is by making the Satoshi client pink.
Yeah. But don't you know, I mean, don't you realize that it's recently been going around, it's a very, very popular study, that men and women's brains are totally different.
That is what a bunch of shit.
No, hold on. I read this study, and this was really legit.
If you read it, it must be true.
I read this, and you know, it actually said that for men, that by looking at the wiring of the brains, that they could tell that men were good at skiing.
Well, neuroscience research are never biased. I mean, so it must be absolutely true. And obviously, I just don't understand it because I'm one of those women. And by the way, where are my shoes? I think I got to get back to the kitchen.
Well, that's why you have to buy so many, because you can't find them. No. But really, come on, like all right, side rant.
Yeah.
That fucking study, it comes out, it says like, yeah, we could tell that men are just more adept at going skiing.
Well,
and I'm just like, oh, you looked at a brain, and you've looked at a human brain that took millions of years to develop, and you discovered men were good at skiing? Like, you are full of shit. There's no science being done here. There is confirmation bias going on.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no science at all.
Yeah, and just by looking at neural connections, it doesn't translate to behavior, right? If there are anatomical structural differences between brains, okay, yes, perhaps that's true, but guess what? There are structural differences between the brains of left-handed and right-handed people. Are we going to say that lefties are good at skiing now and righties are more emotional and good mothers?
Yeah.
You know, it's bullshit.
It is.
It's absolute bullshit.
bullshit.
And then they claimed in the press, I read this article too, and they claimed that this is a groundbreaking new study. My ass. They've been saying this for 50, 60, 70 fucking years, and it's still not true. We've been saying, oh, men and women's brains are different. Well, guess what? It's still not true after 50, 60, 70 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I mean, why aren't there more women in Bitcoin? Well, gee, maybe because they're getting treated like there's some kind of sideshow exhibit.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same thing in the liberty movement. I mean, to some degree. But anyway, that's aside.
Yeah, my friend Melinda was at the conference and she took a picture of things and it was just a sea of dudes, and she tweeted it and said something like, "This is what libertarian stuff must have been like back in the day," and to a certain extent it still is, and so, at least in some corners of the liberty movement. Although it's getting better over time. But they're just in other communities I've seen a lot more willingness to address the issue and admit that it exists, than the liberty movement. In liberty movement, people are like, oh yeah, well, feminism is the state, and so we can't admit that there might be a problem with women not coming to libertarian events, and it must be because their brains are inferior and they don't get liberty, and they're just naturally destined to be status, and who needs them anyway, because liberty's only for men.
Right.
That's the attitude I've seen from a lot of people, perhaps some of the well-meaning ones will say stuff like, well, it's a shame that there aren't more women at those liberty conferences because, I'd really like to fuck them. If the only reason you want us around is to fuck us, fuck you. I'm sorry. We have stuff to say and we have reasons to be there that are not for your sexual pleasure.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound angry here, but I mean...
No, that's okay.
There are reasons why women don't come to Bitcoin conferences. And there are reasons why women don't come to libertarian stuff that are not simply because they aren't interested in those subjects.
Sure. I mean,
and I'm not saying that explains all of it. Perhaps it's a mix. Perhaps both sides are right. That for some reason, there is an element of just in general, women are less likely to be interested in certain subjects like Bitcoin in the early adopter phase or whatever. And the mix, and there's also thrown in the mix there is like bias against women that happens at these events, and so the women don't come back.
Sure,
it's probably the truth lies somewhere in the middle, But to pretend that there's no reason why women are staying away, you know what I mean? To pretend that women may not experience things like that when they go to these conferences is simply not true. They do get treated differently, and they do experience things that can turn them off. Now I'll say the experience that I had with that camera crew was, the worst example of how I was treated, related to my gender at that conference. But overwhelmingly, everyone else was super nice. And I told a bunch of guys about what happened, actually, people that I trust, like Justice Ranvier and Andreas Antonopoulos.
Sure.
And, they laughed about it. They were just, they were stupefied that, this happened because they value me for what I do, and not because I'm a woman, right?
Yeah, for your intellect. I mean, like, even there was a car ride we were on. And a guy was with us, and and like the guy, it was a car. We were in an actual car. Okay, now I mean, for privacy's sake, I'm not going to give all the details, but we were sitting with the guy, and the guy, like, specific. I mean, he knew
he was asking a question about Litecoin.
Right.
And I had done an hour-long interview with
which is what started the
conversation.
Litecoin. Because then he says, "Oh yeah, so Litecoin, okay," and he just instantly addressed the question by name to the two guys in the car.
Yeah, there were two guys and two women in the car.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, maybe you could answer this question, Brian," and the other guy that was in the car.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he did that, but it was and he was framing his question as a technical question.
Yeah.
He said, "I have a technical question about Litecoin, so maybe Brian or this other guy could answer it."
Right.
And then Brian said, "Well, I think Stephanie could answer this question."
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's a literal expert, in my opinion, sitting next to us, and it's like, oh, why are you bothering with me? In fact, you barely even know me. I do it's.
Well, he assumed. He made an assumption that was wrong.
Yeah. But
I mean, not that you wouldn't be able to answer that question. I think you're an expert too, and you certainly know a lot about technology. But it was an obvious assumption on his part that was not accurate.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt it. It felt like a trope where these women can't have any idea. But
yeah, that reminds me of a story.
You want to tell it?
Oh no! It just reminds me of the time when. I had just finished. I had just finished my PhD. So
Okay.
I have a PhD in biochemistry, research science. So this is not, it was hard, and it was an accomplishment, and it's something I'm proud of.
Sure.
And an older lady in my family said something to me about how she would like to get me a present, and I said, well, I think I'd like an air conditioner. And then she said, okay, well, why don't you have your father or Brian pick it out? Really? You're telling me
The PhD.
that a woman who just got a PhD, who's 30 years old, can't pick out an air conditioner without a man? Really?
Yeah.
I've had people say that to me about changing my oil too.
Yeah.
Really? I just got a PhD and I can't change my own oil because I'm a woman. Okay,
Yeah.
I see how the world works now.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you
I
for
hear
correcting
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sexism is not dead.
No.
And please, men get it too.
Oh,
I will be
yes.
the first to say that.
Oh, yes.
Men get shit because of their gender.
Oh, yeah.
It is absolutely true. Circumcision, divorce, custody, the idea of, men have to earn money. You have to be aggressive and violent to be a real man. All that stuff is crap. And it's crap that men go through.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But that doesn't mean, and men in certain ways, men are oppressed.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that women are not oppressed too, and that women don't still get shit too because of their gender.
Or get the larger brunt. I mean,
look, we're all human beings. To me, it doesn't matter who gets it worse, because we all get it, and I can acknowledge that. But I want everybody else to acknowledge that too.
yeah. It's important that it's not that it doesn't get pretended, that it doesn't happen.
Yes.
But I mean, I can say, I mean, in my own life, and maybe we'll wrap this up in a minute, but we'll just finish up a little bit.
We've been ranting for a while. This felt good.
Yeah, it's good to get it out, isn't it?
Yes.
Past few episodes of Sovryn Tech, I've been doing a lot of yelling, but I gotta admit, like, the catharsis is just fabulous.
And the ratings.
and the rate, yeah, Christ. Episode 51, it's like it's already become the most downloaded show of the episode,
Wow.
or most listened to show.
It's worth it, folks. If you haven't heard it, check it out. It's his best show ever. I was there.
Yeah. Well, but just because you're pro something doesn't mean you're anti the other. Okay. Just because, I like Pepsi Max. Does that mean I'm against vanilla Coke? No.
No.
I just like Pepsi Max, or
Right.
I want to promote Pepsi Max or something, or just because I'm big on big with children's rights doesn't mean
you hate old people.
somehow I hate old people. No, I don't hate old people. Come on. So anyway,
maybe we do need a new word, because I hear from a lot of people who are like, look, the word feminist, you just can't. No, it's not. And maybe it's not even accurate to describe people like us anymore. I just don't know. I'm a little confused. I know the word feminist, just like the word anarchist, encompasses a lot of different people. Not all anarchists want to destroy private property and blow stuff up and throw bombs and stuff like that.
Sure.
Definitely not. There are peaceful anarchists, and there are feminists who don't hate men. There are feminists who are not wanting to impose their will. They don't want to dominate men. They don't hate men.
Right.
They just want to be equal and treated with respect and treated fairly,
Right.
basically, and not stereotyped or lumped in because of their gender. So maybe we do need a new word. We were talking with Kevin Koskela this weekend. Actually, he was at the conference, at the Bitcoin conference. I keep thinking it felt like a weekend to me because it was like one giant party.
Yeah.
That wasn't that fun, but it felt like a weekend, even though it was in the middle of the week. And by the way, Tuesday, Monday night, you go downstairs and drunk people everywhere. But anyway, that's a tangent. So Kevin Koskela, who does the Freedom Lovin' podcast, was at this conference, and he had recently done an interview with this guy, J.J. Abrams, I want to say. The guy has this thing
not
called...
J.J. Abrams.
No, not
Yeah.
J.J. Sorry. J.J. something. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I can't recall his last name. But if you look up Sex 3.0, that's his shtick.
Right.
He has this thing called Sex 3.0. And basically, it's the kind of relationships that you and I talk about often, Brian.
Yeah.
He calls it unfenced. So basically, you might be in a relationship with somebody and you have an unfenced relationship where if you wanted to, you have the option to get with other people or have relationships with other people or whatever, but you're not necessarily using that option or taking advantage of it.
And you're not leaving the other relationship to do so.
Right. It's love without ownership. It's love without property or possession of another person.
Right.
Or looking at another person as your property.
Right.
And it's love without constraints or fences, right? And it doesn't mean you're having sex with everybody or a lot of people even. You could be functionally pretty much monogamous. But the point is that he says monogamy and polyamory or open relationships, those are sex 2.0 words. That's old vocabulary, and that doesn't really accurately describe what he's talking about. And so I think the term unfenced, does a really great idea. It was a really great idea and does a really great job of explaining what he means by that, which I really agree with. So I'm going to adapt that. I think I'm going to adopt that term. But sure. I think, Brian, you and I need to come up with another word for the kind of gender equality that we are interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Because feminists and MRA are not cutting it anymore.
Yeah, it's something actually like recently with my liberty perspectives that I've had a hard time finding a word for.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to use the word capitalist. I don't want to use the word voluntarist. I don't, there's so many things that just don't do it for me.
Yes.
The
eternal problem of the hipster who defies labels.
That's right. I can call myself an iconoclast all day long, and not just me. A lot of people call me that. Mm-hmm. But that's not really a word. And yeah, so maybe it's time for using some different words. As far as like with gender equality,
if you think of a good one, let us know.
Yeah, you can email me.
You can do our marketing for us, just like BBM.
That's right.
So when Brian was on the plane on the way back to New Hampshire, he hopped on the internet and he saw a tweet from BBM, which is BlackBerry Messenger, and what did the tweet say, Brian?
Oh, it said something like, yeah, hey, who are you BBMing with? Share
tag them in this photo
or something like that. Yeah.
Or who would be the best people to invite to a party or something?
Yeah.
And they showed this stock photo of a woman at a party, like, yeah, having a great time. So you tweeted back at them, right?
Yes.
And it was related to your recent rant about companies who want you to do their marketing for them for free.
Right. And I was like, I tweeted to them, sorry, if you wanted me to be your marketing guy, I'd prefer to get paid or at least get a T-shirt. I don't do this for free. And
did they reply?
No one replied. And in fact, I don't know if anyone else even bothered tweeting. I mean, BlackBerry, who the hell cares, right? Well, some people must care because the thing was like the most downloaded app in the App Store and in the Play Store for quite a while. So somebody must have cared, but maybe all that flash just went away. Hell, I have no idea. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know where we were going with this, but if you want to be our unpaid marketing intern,
yes, it is.
You can tweet at Sovryn Tech.
Yeah, if you got an idea. Someone sent the idea like for my quote unquote philosophy. I really hate that word because it has the same problem as every other word we're talking about. It has this historical baggage, that has nothing to do with, what I think most people in our circles want to use it for.
Sometimes what passes for philosophy is,
Oh, sure. Sure. Like someone will come out with, Battlestar Galactica and philosophy. What the fuck? Battlestar Galactica and what? I mean, what does that have to do? Well, yeah, there's a lot of Hegel's principles are in there. It's like, no, it's a stupid TV show. But anyway, yeah, so philosophy is the same thing. So I've had people like say, well, your philosophy could be incendiarism. And I was, no, So I'm a little worried to come up with my own other
That was
word.
Close. That was pretty good, I have to say.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad because I've been called an incendiary guy, which is maybe where that came from. So, but I'm worried about coming up with the word on my own. So actually, I'm not asking you to do this. I'm not asking anyone to do this as marketing. I'm asking people to come up with this stuff so that way we're not cult leaders. Okay.
Yes, please.
Because if I pick my own word, then it's like, oh yeah, see, it all centers on him and they have to follow him like Jesus Christ or some other philosopher. But anyway, so I think we can wrap this up. The Bitcoin conference, again, a real letdown. I did not see the kind of innovation I saw like at San Jose.
Yeah.
The panels were not as good as some of the ones that were in New York. So these things haven't been, it's not like, well, they've all been bad. No, most of them have had some kind of, nice touch to them. But this one just didn't have it. The only place where any innovation was happening was in the hallways, talking one-to-one to other people.
Well, I have to say, okay, so the first day of the conference was pretty stomach-turning as far as the talks go, and
yep.
being focused on regulatory and governmental themes.
Sure.
And compliance. But the second day was a little bit better. There was Trace Mayer's talk, and, Trace Mayer has his privacy website, and he gave a libertarian talk. However, and he was great. He took out some dollar bills and said, if you're using Bernanke coin, you're supporting killing kids with drones. It was clever, and it was absolutely right. However, he does have the gloom and doom kind of style of Peter Schiff and all these libertarian guys who say you got to get out of the U.S. and it's a little bit. It's been done,
Yeah, I don't care for the gloom and doom attitude, like saying, look, we need to use Bitcoin because the dollar's going to crash.
Yeah.
First off, I think that's a lie. Okay.
You're skeptical of the whole dollar crash.
It cannot, as long as it's backed up by guns, it cannot reach the value of zero. Okay. And all these doom and gloom scenarios, generally run off the idea that the military is still going to be in power. Like there's going to be, some kind of violence is still going to be pushing things to some degree. And anyway, my point being is that if you want to sell Bitcoin from a liberty perspective, sell it in the idea that we pay no attention to what happens with the rest of these man-made economies. We are interested in this economy. You do not say, well, this one's going to fail. You say what this one can do. And it's very easy to sell Bitcoin that way because Bitcoin, through technology, the wonders of Bitcoin technology, does transcend everything else. By leaps and bounds. There's no reason to talk about the gloom and doom. Just talk about everything positive that Bitcoin does and say this is what we're going to use from now on.
Probably read Zero Hedge. I mean, look at the Zero Hedge survey that was done last.
Too. Yeah.
Zero Hedge?
Yeah. I mean, that guy. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but there was something that came out of Zero Hedge where all you have to do is just look at the poll that they did about Bitcoin. And it showed that the most common use of Bitcoin, at least a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, was for gifts, donations, and charitable purposes.
Well, there's a positive point out of Zero Hedge. I'm glad for that.
Yes, but that was a survey. That wasn't from them. That was the user data.
Yeah, most of the time they're just as gloom and doom. And
however, another positive thing from that survey, at least in my mind, it is positive, was that the majority of the respondents were of libertarian ideology, and they were not non-religious, and they were average age 32-year-old males and were in relationships.
Right. Yeah. Well. Okay. That those are good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in any case, I mean, the gloom and doom
The hopeful part of that, was the libertarian ideology.
Yeah,
not that I care about the gender or whatever.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Right.
And so either way, they're salesmen with no value, which I can't, I really can't abide. Though maybe it's important to at least listen to their perspective once, go to like a conference where these people gather, but anyway.
Now, okay, back to the no innovation thing for a minute.
Oh, sure.
There was another trend that I noticed at this conference that we just went to, and there was a lot of talk about crypto equities, and specifically I'm talking about PROTOSHARES and Mastercoin.
Yep.
And, they're two different things. But people were excited about those, and they're kind of considered, I guess, next level kind of Bitcoin next level stuff.
Okay.
Right? Because PROTOSHARES is what? It gives you, like, you own PROTOSHARES and then you have equity in other DAX distributed.
Yeah, other commodities or whatever.
Crypto
it can
companies.
Be just about anything, sure.
Yeah. And with Mastercoin, it's kind of similar. It rides on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's all kinds of things that you can do with Mastercoin. Now, there are people who are really excited about these two things, and then there are people who think that they're a scam.
Right.
And smart people, not people who don't understand them, people that understand them very well.
Good understanding.
And they're, by the way, they're hard to understand.
Yeah.
I have trouble understanding them.
Sure.
But there are people on both sides and people that are smart very smart on both sides.
Yeah.
So I have I don't like to base my opinions off of other people's, but when somebody I trust says Mastercoin is a scam, and then somebody else I trust says Mastercoin is the next big thing, there's a little bit of conflict there in my mind. So what I really have to do is form my own opinion about it, but it's been hard because I don't understand it super well.
Sure. It's tough because, we're not talking about people that are unsupportive of cryptocurrencies or of, smart property, all the things that crypto can do, like crypto equity. They're not against it. It's just they see these implementations and there's people who say, no, this is, that are very, very much ideologically in the same field, who just say, no, this is a scam, or they say, yes, this is very exciting and it'll work. So, but that, real quick, that's another finer point, and I hope everybody's still listening, because I think this is a big deal that I'm about to bring up.
Oh, okay.
Is that I came away with this with a very, very, and this was not from a panel, this was from the hallways, okay? But I walked away with a very, very different perspective on Litecoin. And the perspective, okay, and I haven't heard anyone say this, maybe somebody already came up with this, whatever, if you did, good for you. But I consider the way Litecoin's being implemented, the way it's being developed, and the relationship that Litecoin developers have with Bitcoin developers, I'm more seeing Litecoin as Bitcoin beta. Yes, I'm fully well aware that Bitcoin is technically still in beta. We're not at version 1 yet. Okay, but you know what I mean. Litecoin is like the test bed, the real-life, real-time economic test bed for Bitcoin. Because everybody's asking me, well, Litecoin there's no purpose to Litecoin. I totally disagree. Okay, because there's a Bitcoin dev channel, okay, that you can use to test new features out and all that stuff. But we're talking about an economy, an entire economy here. We're talking about real, in some cases, real value, real money, whatever.
$10 billion.
Sure, of value, okay, of based on whatever. You're not going to figure that how certain changes are going to work in an economy like that, or in a dev channel. You're just not. You need something real and out there, and I think Litecoin could take on that role of being the test bed.
Well, it is actually.
Sure.
So I spoke with the creator of Litecoin, Charlie Lee, and also one of the, he and Warren Tagami, who created Fedora, by the way,
right,
are both Litecoin developers. They're like the core Litecoin development team, and there are some other Litecoin developers too, but they are in large part, very, very, very active in that project. So I talked with them, and that was like the main crux of their argument for why Litecoin is important. They've kind of abandoned the whole, well, it has faster confirmation time and it uses script instead of SHA-256. They're not really focusing too much on that. Yes, that is part of Litecoin. That's why they say Litecoin is light, right? That they sort of said that, but they were really wanting to highlight the most important reason why they think Litecoin is important and worth paying attention to, is that it is effectively a way to experiment with new features that can then be implemented in Bitcoin. And also the other way around, they've taken all the good things about Bitcoin and all the features in Bitcoin and learned from mistakes of Bitcoin and from other altcoins. And, they've put it in Litecoin, and then they've also tried things with Litecoin that eventually made it into Bitcoin. Yeah.
So it's gone both ways. And that's it. I mean, when you have this, remora attached to the Bitcoin shark, that's going to have value for as long as the other one does.
Yeah.
And so I consider Litecoin a very good thing, and very much worth, because, you take these other companies, they're not working so tightly with Bitcoin to put in their other stuff. It's where I think Litecoin is. And this argument that the altcoins are pointless, no, I think they have a purpose. If Bitcoin's intrinsic value is in the fact that is within the idea of the Bitcoin system, is that, Bitcoin can transact. If that's Bitcoin's value, okay, intrinsic value, Litecoin's intrinsic value is that it can be considered the entire test bed. Okay, real world test bed. Because again, we're talking about, especially if we get the future that we want, Bitcoin will be the currency. You do not want to rely on a dev channel to make sure this shit works. You don't. That's dumb. Okay?
And you can't just test it in, among a small group of developers or whatever. Because this is a peer-to-peer network-based program that you really can't just test it within a couple of people.
No,
right?
It's got to be a world-class test.
Yeah.
And worldwide. It's got to be in the wild, okay, if you want to test it. Now, does that make it, a currency? Does that make Litecoin a currency that's, that's shaky? Sure. But that's its intrinsic value. Okay, is that it can be the test bed.
But you could say Bitcoin is shaky too. There are issues with Bitcoin.
There's
issues with scalability. There's issues with all kinds of stuff in Bitcoin.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, it's stable enough so that it's gained all this adoption and it hasn't broken yet, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's something a lot of people don't remember is that the initial versions of Bitcoin, like in 2009, 2010, they were terrible. It was crap code. I mean, it's gotten a lot better, but the code was atrocious. It was really great idea. It really was a terrible implementation. It took time, to get it where it is now, to where, yes, it's still shaky at points, but to even get it to where, it can handle the infrastructure that it's doing now, that took a lot of time. So anyway, there we go. No, a nice overall Bitcoin talk and discussions on what exactly we encountered.
Yeah, wow, we've been going all night, Brian.
We've been going all night
for
long.
Almost 2 hours now.
So
it's time to wrap up. This was just going to be a short special, but we really talked a lot.
Yeah, it ended up, turning into so many other things. I hope everybody listened to the whole thing because there was Bitcoin talks all throughout it, or talk of Bitcoin all throughout it, and I'm releasing this week. I gave everybody a triple load last week when I went away for this thing for Inside Bitcoin. So that means, no regular episode this week. If you're wondering, where is it? How come my stuff's not getting released on Saturday? Where's my fix? And, I gotta say, and I mean that all in the absolute.
We are recording this on Saturday.
Yeah, we are recording it on Saturday. But I gotta say, this all just, I say all that in the nicest possible way because, I can't believe it. But when I release an episode, that thing, it's like people just tear right into it. They lunge onto that. And I'm more than honored. It's almost like they are, and I love it. And I'm trying not to be arrogant. Not that would surprise anyone if I were, but I'm trying not to be arrogant, but really thank you so much. Because you people really, just jump onto this stuff and it's like you can't wait for it to come out and you just start listening. And I am so happy because I get to interact with you in that way.
Yay.
I get to, and I've said this before on the show and I'll say it again. It is always comforting, that, I can't say in the thousands yet, though actually last weekend I did for the first time, in less than 48 hours, I had 1,000 unique plays.
Yay.
So I'm really happy about that. But I'm not going to claim it in the thousands. But the statement I always like to make is that it is so comforting that hundreds of people, every week want to know what I think. And I really appreciate all of you out there that do care, that do listen, even if you hate it. I'm glad you're listening because you hate it. I love a good disagreement. Okay. I don't like a good screaming match between a couple of people, but I love a good disagreement because I can be wrong. I've been wrong on this show before. Like once, maybe twice. No. But it's great. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on again.
Oh, thank you, Brian, for having me. I always have fun doing shows with you.
Yeah, this is great. The wonderful, unfiltered, uncensored Sovryn tech.
Oh, yes.
That just can't seem to fit in anywhere else. So anyway, when you hear this, also I'm probably going to do a double special this week because I'm going to be on Puke and the Gang. And
that is special.
Yeah, that will be special. And I will be releasing that as well this week. So you're going to get a lot of Sovryn tech. It's almost going to be another triple load. And then, of course, next coming Saturday, which whatever the date of that is, I'm not going to bother looking. Whenever next Saturday is, you will have a regular episode of Sovryn Tech, and we've got so much to talk about because it's the tech world.
Are you going to do a Christmas special?
I think I'll do a Saturnalia special.
Oh, Sovryn Textile.
Yeah, or maybe a Mithras special.
Oh my!
Because you got to keep Mithras in Christmas. Anyway, in fact,
wow.
the word Mithras is in there.
Well, I can't wait to listen to your podcast.
I know.
Where you explain that.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go that far. Anyway.
Send him an email.
Yeah.
Ask him.
Yeah, you'd have to ask me. Carpe Lucem, everybody, and I will see you next week.
This has been Sovryn Tech. Visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.